You all know the situation. This is happening right now. And there's a lot of information, and I think we need to take it from a new approach. And just one example, for instance, within healthcare, the amount of medical information is expected to be doubled every 73rd day in 2020. One more time. The medical information will be doubled every 73rd day. Once a quarter, the amount of information will be doubled. Good luck, physicians, oncologists, to keep up to speed. And a lot of that will be medical images, but of course a lot of unstructured information in terms of papers and scientific papers. So this is sort of the key point that I think is differentiating the way that we apply AI. If we talk and compare with advanced analytics, basically what we are doing, we're bridging the gap between knowledge-driven methods and data-driven methods. Data-driven methods have served us well over years. That's business intelligence, advanced analytics, and so forth. But we have had very few tools that could extract sort of insights from text, and these kind of in scientific paper, books, guidelines, and so forth. So this is the opportunity that we have right now. And this has been possible by some of the algorithms that we saw this morning. I'll make it a little bit simpler in terms of now we have access to systems that actually can understand text written by humans, supposed to be consumed by humans in terms of books, scientific articles, and so forth. So that's the new capability that we have. We can start to reason around this, go figure out the different correlations and so forth. We also have the possibility to have systems that will be able to learn over time. The more we expose these systems for questions and real cases, it will be better over time, which is a good from an investment perspective. Normally when you invest in something, if you call it a software, you don't have that kind of payback, but it becomes more and more valuable over time, which is the case with these kind of systems, because you generate insights out of data that are valuable. And I think these systems also will give us the total new opportunity to interact with systems. We've already seen that with, for instance, small robots. Hilton, if you go to Hilton in the US, then you can ask a robot, where is the best steakhouse in this quarter? And then this surrounding. And then you will get that answer from a small little robot. So it's new ways of interacting with complex systems. So that is a quick course in that. This picture is basically a summary of what companies out in the world are doing right now. These are the three main topics for AI right now. And it's insights, it's customer interaction in many forms, and it's some sort of automation. So these are the top three categories of AI usages within industries. So insights, which is basically taking a lot of information that you have inside your company, and you can also acquire outside your company. So then you start to apply different models on that in order to create insights. Typical example, this could be a case handler within the public sector. These are all of the requirements put up for, let's say, having some sort of support from the government. And then from all of that information, all of the guidelines, policies, rules, what comes out is a recommendation for that specific individual that this case handler is talking to or handling, which is basically then giving us an equal care situation. Everybody is evaluated in the same way. Doesn't really matter if you in which call center you land. Everybody will have the same kind of information. So it's also from a justice perspective and so forth. So these are kind of insights applications. Another one is decision support for oncologists in selection of treatment method based on all of the guidelines, principle, policies that you have, compared to your individual profile. And it can go down to even on a genetic level. So if you do a sequencing the DNA of a tumor or tumor tissue, you can find all of the mutations that you can act clinically upon, which is also a kind of insight. Could be engineers. I guess, how many sort of engineering companies do we have in the room? A lot of them. How many documents do you have related to projects? 2, 3, 5? This is a typical example where you can apply this technology. So every time you need to construct something, that you can go through all of the accumulated knowledge within your organization, in all of your project reports, all of your designs, everything that sits within your company, and say, have we done this before? What is the best solution? Instead of starting to create a new solution. This is used by, for instance, a oil drilling company in Australia. So just a simple question, how do we build the top of an oil rig in order to protect birds to be on the surface where the helicopter is supposed to be landing? That has been designed for each drilling station every time they built one. And when they started to use this technology, suddenly they realized we've done this more than 100 times. And they even had outcome data, which design was the best to keep the birds away. So this is one example of this kind of insights. Customer interaction. This is probably the first thing that people think about, this kind of either mobile phone chatbot or something like that. So this is also coming back to the point, it's not a technical question. If you put this in the terms of Kry, min doktor, 2 typical applications in this field, that was driven out of user requirements. Because you and me, we didn't really have the time to sort of wait for the primary care center to be opened or have access. We wanted to have access immediately. So then an app was created, and then you have all of the contacts that you need. You can talk to a physician, you can get a recipe for drugs and so forth. So that's a typical customer interaction application. We did this exercise with a bunch of people like you. Everybody had to create their own chatbot. People did this within an hour. The chatbot was created. So the conclusion from all of these execs and management people, this is simple. And then our next question was, is this the way you would like to represent yourselves to your customers? Is this the right tone in the messages that you're writing? Have you considered any kind of integration to backbone systems? Inside, outside firewall? So then you come to the point that a chatbot or self-service is much more than a chatbot. You have to have the user requirements, and you have to design it in order to meet user requirements. So it's a user-driven approach. Because just a simple chatbot goes into what kind of information do you have within your own systems. You need to find out some additional information. You might want to do some process automation, like an order-to-cash situation. If you have a chatbot and someone is sort of part of an order-to-cash system, okay, then you can do process automation, which now in many companies sort of is a very manual process, where you transport this document for sign-off and it moves into different departments. So is that something that you can use? Feedback, analytics, all of the channels, which is sort of what you need to have. And now also with all of the security issues that you need to consider. And reporting. And also, when do you stop using a chatbot if you have a customer that is unhappy? When do you transfer that person over to a live dialogue? So this is this kind of digital assistant. Moving then to the next part. So this is something that is being really, I think, a high focus right now. On the left side, we have this kind of very simple automation, which is not so much AI, which is basically saying, okay, this is a standard procedure you're doing. We can automate that, typing and so forth, and bring it forward. And then we can have some automation in the process. The middle part is when you put AI on top of that kind of work. That is when sort of the robot or the automation starts to use information generated by AI, having a profile, understanding who the client is, what is happening, what is the best next step, and so forth. So then you have a robot that is a little bit more intelligent. And then on the far right side, you have this kind of autonomous robot that sort of takes all of the decision, makes everything without any human interaction. So these are the kind of things that are being discussed. I guess a lot of people saw the discussion regarding some municipalities that started to use a robot in order to decide on some support for people. Started in some communities in Skåne. So there's a robot in place that actually takes all of the data in, takes the decision saying you will get these amount of money every month. And then you saw the reaction in Mölndal, in Gothenburg. 18 case handlers quit. And that is an example that we can come back to in terms of how you implement these kind of technologies. That was seen as a threat to the working population in Mölndal. Instead of regarding this, if it would have been done in the correct way, probably they would have been saying, we take away all of the boring work so you can do some very value-creating work for your clients. Which is a big difference in terms of how you introduce these kind of systems. How many of you are doing this kind of robot process automation, RPA? And it's a handful of people. So this is a sort of the first step that you can do when you enter onto that arena. And of course then, I guess, my experience is when you start doing this, then you start immediately to see different changes you can do in the process and also in the organization when you start having these kind of tools in place. It's also one way of looking at automation when we talk about IoT, in the Internet of Things, where we can see a lot of work right now. There's a lot of systems that are doing this kind of simple robotics or automation. But now what we see is those systems are being enhanced with artificial intelligence. So you can start to have predictive maintenance based on AI, because no one can handle all of the information from the logs, from the different sensors and so forth. Then it becomes a huge AI problem, or a big problem that AI can solve. And then you start to build models. So in this case, you can say if you have facility management or asset management tools that you're using, those could easily be enhanced by applying AI on top of that. So you start to use all of the information that you have from all of the sensors in your process. So you're all in for this AI ladder. You're starting to climb now. That's good. Now when you're here today. So this is the way that we look upon one way of looking at it. One way to interpret this is AI requires machine learning. And we saw that this morning. Analytics requires data. And you need to have an information architecture. And that becomes then the data science. I guess you have started to climb this ladder in one way or another. Just a quick question, how many have some sort of AI project ongoing? Or quite a few. Quite a few, that's good. How many are considering starting an AI project? That's the rest. And now comes the tricky third question. Who is not considering to start an AI project? But it's sort of, I think it's a good spread in terms of what we see if we look at the industries across at least Sweden and also maybe the Nordic countries. I would say if I do an international comparison, the number is low. And I think that is coming back to some of the questions that we have, where Sweden is on this AI journey. And then we can start to discuss what can be done in order to facilitate that. So this is then sort of one of the new jobs. I was in one workshop group, and I think data scientist is a new position, new profession that is starting to be very rare to find these days. And if you find them, they are high priced, if I put it that way. And basically data scientists will look at all of the information you have and move that into some sort of consumable format within this kind of ladder, regardless if you're using AI, ML, machine learning or analytics. So this is a resource. If you have one, hold them tight to yourself. This is also related to some of the questions that are on the screen. This is within IBM. We have something called the Institute for Business Value, and that is an institute that is sort of doing a lot of interviews with the C-level people and trying to find patterns, create some insights. And what is called an outperformer in this study is a company that overachieves in terms of either revenue, efficiency, or there are a lot of key performance indicators that are measured. And I think the numbers speak for themselves in a sense. So if you look at companies that do execute on an AI strategy, so that's 40% outperforming. I think there's a clear message in this picture. And if you look at the digitalization strategy, that's sort of more even, since most of the people are doing that anyhow, but outperformers are executing on that strategy in a higher level. So you will have, by the end, I don't know what is going to happen, if we're going to send a link or if there's going to be a microsite from this event. So you will have the link so you can download all of the full reports regarding this, so you can do your own study. But I think it's an interesting observation. And my observation in Sweden is that many times these two strategies are blurred in companies. AI becomes a part of the digitalization strategy. And this is a clear indication there's a difference if you execute them separately. They are interlinked, of course. There's a lot in terms of organization and all of these kind of things and processes. But this is a clear indication. I think we're talking about more than 5,000 companies that are part of this investigation. So it's pretty statistically significant, I would say. So it's a clear message in this little, and there's just a little part of all of the numbers that you can dig into and do what you like with. Another finding in a similar study, it says most customer experience, CX is customer experience, practitioners say AI is an opportunity, but fewer practitioners say AI will force the change executives have predicted. So this is also an interesting observation, that there's a gap between what the top level and the board is thinking about AI, that AI will be this silver bullet that will change the organization, do all of the magic stuff. Practitioners, it's more like, okay, this is a good tool we can have in the toolbox. We will do a lot of things. This is an opportunity. We can do a better job. We can generate more revenue. So this is something you can think about in your own company, if this is something you need to balance, expectations from the light is on. The expectations sort of from management and the board level down to people actually doing the job. Because I think this is, if you miss this expectation level, it's going to be a little bit of a rough ride doing this. in order to be successful in all of this work, trust is key. So these are some examples of what is being done from IBM, and we're also working together with some other players in some of these initiatives, working with Google, Microsoft, all of the you can think about. And because by the end of the day, this is about trust. Trust for the AI systems that we have. And so the first one is sort of a blog where you can read about sort of the transparency issue. But I would say I will give you an example of what you can download. So this is something you need to start to read every morning. Everyday Ethics for Artificial Intelligence. You wake up, take this one. Today I'm going to do this. So this is, I would say, a fairly good document in order for you to develop ethical AI. So it comes down to 5 different principles: accountability, value alignment, explainability, fairness, and user data rights. So let's have a quick look at on each of them. Accountability, that you start to look at these kind of things from a design perspective, development perspective, decision process, and outcomes. Who is accountable for the recommendation from the AI system? So then there are some very hands-on things that you need to think about, how you document the decision processes and so forth. Value alignment. AI should be designed to align with the norms and values of your user group in mind, which is talking about the bias issue in these kind of AI systems. And one example of what we're doing in this field is within a month, I think there will be 1 million faces annotated for visual recognition released as open source. So then you have a toolkit so you can evaluate your facial recognition algorithm if it takes into consideration sex, ethnic background, and so forth. So this is, I think, what has to be done within the industry in order to create trust for these kind of technologies. Explainability, I think, was a key topic in many of the working groups and also earlier today. But I think it's very important that it's possible to understand its decision process. So you can trace back and see why the system has recommended something, both from a compliance perspective and from a trust perspective. And also there is a link to what we are doing within AI research. And that is within our own research organization. We also have a very huge collaboration with MIT in Cambridge. More than 100 AI researchers are looking into some of the critical components of building AI solutions. So useful stuff. I gave it to you for free. And in the groups that I participated in, there was also questions regarding what do we do as a next step. So these are 3 very clear and simple things. And be crystal clear about your AI vision. And the first sort of bullet on the right-hand side, I think that has been a key topic in many workshops. Invest in AI education and training for everyone, which is a key thing. And not maybe so much in technology, it might be in understanding what are the requirements from a client's perspective. Don't let failure of imagination limit your vision for AI. So that is applying a technology that you don't sort of look back, you look forward. And also clean data is very critical around this. This is something that is very obvious in many companies where you have a customer journey that is horizontal, but the organization is vertical. And as a patient or a client, you pass over different vertical silos, and there's no communication in between. So I think this is one key thing to start to look at. Bullet point number 2, embrace design thinking for creative problem solving. And that is just applying a process in order to become so you start to develop something that is user driven, regardless if it's a patient, if it's one of your co-workers, if it's a customer or whatever. You need to embrace these kind of things in order to start to go figure out what is the question, what is it that we're trying to solve. And then secondly, what kind of data do we need in order to answer that question? And then we can start to discuss the technology. So we're not trying to find technology that fits into some sort of question. And in many other these workshops that I've been doing together with clients, we often encourage and we use customers to join in those workshops in order to get the feedback. So that's a key thing. I guess many of you are familiar with the minimum value viable product. So it's being fast on what you're doing, and also just create backlog and groom so you can adapt to market trends, and also on the bigger, broader impact of AI. So this is the one example of an operating model that we are applying, which is basically starts from the left-hand side, design thinking, which is one way of trying to capture user requirements from a user's perspective, so it becomes user-driven development. That generates a number of use cases. So we have this kind of let's call it a list of a backlog of use cases. Then we apply different technologies in order to select which use case we would like to take to the next level. And that could be from a technical feasibility perspective, it could be from a customer satisfaction perspective, it could be from a financial perspective, it could be from different perspectives. And then we move that into this kind of garage, which is, if you come from the northern part of Sweden, a garage is where you put stuff you don't want to see. So it's a bad word in terms of Swedish. Often I think it's better to look at the original English interpretation, which is basically a place where you bring stuff that is broken to be fixed. So this is the approach you could have on a garage. And then you go into this kind of very fast proof of concepts, 4, 5, 6 weeks, and then you have a sort of a signal, and then you move into the next phase, pilot, 8 to 10 weeks, and then you can move everything to production. So this is one way of really fast trying to evaluate. You can kill after the proof of concept. So that's a fast burn a poach, as the Americans say. So this is one concept. There are a lot of different other models, but what I'm saying, I think, is in the last workshop there was this question about speed. This is one way of increasing the speed of understanding and start to implementing, because this process brings it really fast. And as you can see, there is no, if I'm not going to be a little bit rude, there is no 2-year pre-study in here. This is just moving, having clients involved, customers, whatever, and roll along this path. So this is the way that I've been working in projects of the, let's say, 2, 3 years now. And I would say this is very successful in terms of outcome. And the cool part is this is often involving customers, patients, and caseworkers, the people that really do the work. And it's so fun when they say, this is a fun way of doing this, because by the end of the day, we understood that we were putting up the requirements, but we didn't understand it until you ended up in a point where you have this kind of proof of concept to be delivered. So I recommend have a look at this. This is design thinking is a Stanford method, so it's stuff that is out on the market. So what we've done, we put this together in this kind of industrialized way of taking it from idea to production in one go. I think this statement has been made quite a few times today, that it's creating a new partnership between people and computers. And I think this is around enhance, scale, and accelerate human expertise. So this is the sidekick technology. This is going to happen on the site, or in any way you will have all of these links. You can download these reports.